Have the White Sox created a problem getting some of their young infielders at bats with their latest veteran free agent signing? Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the FanSided Network. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the White Sox signed another veteran player, this time 30-year-old infielder Josh Rojas. Let's discuss if this is actually a bad move to an infielder that already has some promising players that need big league at-bats. Then it looks like the Sox have a top 5 farm system. Should that be the cause for excitement, or we won't be fooled again? Let's discuss that in the second segment. And finally, it's a Top 5 Friday. Let's discuss how 5 former White Sox players are doing in the Hall of Fame voting. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So count me in as someone who's actually not bothered by the team signing Josh Rojas. I mean, sure, it feels like all the Sox did was bring in, a Nicky Lopez replacement with just more career home runs. Nicky Lopez 2.0 with some power. And while I'm still hopeful that Brian Ramos could be a good hitter, you can rotate him between DH, or they're considering even having him play the outfield. But the key is you have options. Plus, for those saying Rojas is going to get in the way of Lenyn Sosa, you got to remember Lenyn Sosa was demoted to AAA, I believe, twice. I even think 3 times. Like, this is a guy that they kept bouncing back and forth between Charlotte, and the guy was racking up frequent flyer miles. So it's, he had a strong season, he had a very strong finish to the season, but it was never like this guy's got to be sharpied in to the lineup. He's for sure your opening day second baseman, or you're for sure opening day third baseman. To me, his finish was, as I always keep saying, I can never quit Lenyn Sosa. Just when I want to quit on him, he will go on a stretch where it's like, man, there's still something there. There's still something there. He's Godfather Part 3, the greatest, the only good line in Godfather 3. Keeps bringing you back in, as I always keep saying. But his defense is awful. He just does not have good instincts at second or third, or even at short. So it can't hurt to have a better fielding option. Plus, Rojas, he's produced better F-Wars seasons than Sosa. And Rojas was being pursued by contenders, or at least competitive teams. The Cubs were rumored to be very interested in bringing Rojas in. So that's the other thing. Maybe he will still have value at the trade deadline, because there's nothing wrong with signing a guy to a 1-year deal. There's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal unless you're signing like Trevor Bauer. And again, to the Trevor Bros, he's never playing in the major leagues again because he's a bad person. He's bad in the clubhouse. He's terrible in the clubhouse. The Dodgers players could not wait to get rid of him. Okay, that's why he's out of baseball. If you are a bag, at some point that gets you out of the game. Ask Latrell Sprewell all that. Also, Rojas hits left-handed, and outside of Colson Montgomery and a switch hitting Brooks Baldwin, the infield has no left-handed hitters, so it's nice to get some balance. And especially if Montgomery does start the season at AAA, you would only have Brooks Baldwin as a switch hitter in terms of a left-handed bat. And honestly, for those that are like, man, why are we bringing in a 30, a guy who's going to be 31 in June? Why are we doing this? We did this with Nicky Lopez and Paul DeYoung last season. Well, this team is coming off the worst season ever. And you might be saying, like, Todd, aren't you changing your tune? Weren't you the guy that was banging the drum for giving guys runways? Yes. But at the same time, this is the start of the season. And also, I would like to see guys earn their spot on this roster, because no one outside of Corey Lee, Luis Robert Jr., Jonathan Cannon, Davis Martin, and Drew Thorpe should be guaranteed a roster spot. And technically, you have to give one to Andrew Benintendi because the finances demand it, and Andrew Vaughn because they still keep believing that there's something there. So you got 7 guys, basically 4 in the lineup, and one of them, Corey Lee, I would just say is a backup, because I ultimately believe, and there's nothing wrong with Corey Lee being the backup catcher for the rest of the decade. That's fine. but there's 7 guys that technically have a spot in the lineup, and 2 is only because finances dictated, and Luis Robert Jr. could be traded. So otherwise, you have 4 guys, 3 in the starting rotation. Otherwise, everything should be up for grabs. Have some competition in spring training, and I think that was one of the things that was lacking in last spring training that kind of put the season, put that season towards the historically awful, was there was just no competition. You had Yohan Moncada if he was healthy. He was at third. Paul DeJong was at short. Nicky Lopez was at second. All you had was utility guys battling it out for the backup spot, like Braden Shoemake and Danny Mendick and Zach Remillard. So these guys should earn their spots. Everyone should have to compete for a spot in the infield. And I think that's healthy. It's healthy to have competition. Now, obviously, you don't want guys pressing, but you want guys to, think that they should be performing at their best every day, that they cannot take off spring training, that they can't go, I'm going to go golfing today. No, you better be in the cage. You better be putting in the work to earn your spot. And again, I'm also fine tapping into assistant GM Josh Barfield's ties to players he's familiar with rather than Chris Getz's former Royals ties. Because that was another thing that put this season, put 2024 on a path to being just historically awful, was all those former Royals they signed that Chris Getz and former manager Pedro Grifol was familiar with. These are guys that, at least the guys that Barfield are familiar with, have had at least 2 or 3 productive seasons, where, for example, Nicky Lopez had just 1 career season, and that was it. He was never going to match that career year. Now, Rojas is obviously the second straight player the Sox acquired in 2 days, and I loved how, I think it was Josh Fegan who wrote, or Jim Margulis, that the Sox are now going to be averaging a transaction every day. They'll just be signing a player every single day for 365 days of the year this year. But it's the second straight day that they've made a transaction, second straight day that they signed someone or traded for someone, as they acquired Tyler Gilbert from the Philadelphia Phillies on New Year's Day. He started his career in the Diamondbacks. I talked about it on yesterday's episode. This is now the second straight Diamondbacks player that played in Arizona when Barfield was the director of player development. Rojas debuted in 2019 at 25. He got into 58 games between 2019 and 2020. He then plays in 139 games in 2021, where he had a 264, 341, 411 slash line, 11 home runs, and was a 1.8 F4. Followed that up with a 2022 season where he had a 269, 349, 391 slash line, and finished as a 2.5 F4 player. The Diamondbacks did trade him at the 2023 deadline to the Mariners. And according to MLB trade rumors, this is what they wrote up in terms of like how his career has gone since that trade. He had a respectable 272, 321, 400, 105 WRC plus down the stretch with the Mariners. He followed that up with a torrid start to the 2024 campaign as well, hitting 318, 408, 530, 175 WRC plus through the end of April. Fortunately for Rojas, the wheels completely came off from there. The rest of the way, Rojas hit a paltry 208, 285, 301, 75 WRC plus, including a brutal 184, 265, 272, 62 WRC plus slash line over the season's final 2 months, while the Mariners slipped out of the playoff picture. He was non-tendered. Back to me. He was non-tendered by the Mariners. MLB trade rumors did project that he would have gotten $4.3 million. So that terrible stretch and probably that number. Obviously, the numbers vary. MLB trade rumors tries to do a decent projection. But either way, that probably influenced the Mariners non-tendering him. But he has had a season. He's had a couple seasons where his walk rates is over 10%. So that fits again into what the Sox are trying to do with their lineup this year, and that is get guys that can get on base. Let's go back to Moneyball basics, And that's better than Nicky Lopez. And again, he still finished, even though he had after April, he was just terrible. He still finished 2024 with a 1.9 F4. No other White Sox infielder currently on the roster had a better F4. In fact, not many players had a better F4. I want to say it was Garrett Crochet, Eric Fetty's brief time, and I think Chris Flexen had a 1.9 F4. So you are adding at least a value player. 91 WRC plus is better than Lopez's 77. And for those that are like, well, we got to get Lenny and Sosa some at-bats. He had an 80 WRC plus. And defense is his calling card. He had 2 defensive runs saved in 2024 at second base, although he only played 66 innings there. He had 7 defensive runs saved at third, and he can also play the outfield, and he can play some first. And he's also gotten better as a fielder. He was a -4 DRS in 2021 at second, then 0 the next 2 seasons, and then obviously, produced what I just said about a second ago. At third, he was -2, -1, -2 in 2021, 2022, and 2023. And again, so you're at least seeing improvement. He also went from -6 outs above average at third in 2022 to 6 in 2024. So look at that swing there. And that's going to give you a better defensive option at third over, say, Sosa, who was a -6, or second, he was a -3 defensive run saves, and he also can run the bases. And now, if you are in the camp of giving Miguel Vargas a runway, and hey, I made the case on Monday for at least why I'll give him a second chance, the man still has to earn it. You just can't be like, here. Not when you hit 150, and not when you keep looking like you're traumatized that you're not with the Chicago White Sox and you're not with the Los Angeles Dodgers. You got to earn it, son. Young man. And also Chase Mydroth, he came over from Boston in the Garrett Crochet trade. I listened to ESPN's Kylie McDaniel on the CHSN White Sox podcast, and he described that Mydroth's floor is at least a high-quality utility player. So for those that are like, well, he's going to get in the way of Chase Mydroth at second base. Well, with his limited defensive range, you could still have Mydroth as a starting second baseman with his ability to get on base. And he is good enough, according to McDaniel, to make plays as long as you position him correctly. But his ability to get on base makes it sense to maybe give him the starting job, and then you have Rojas come off the bench and be a late inning defensive replacement. At least Rojas has a track record of at least producing at the plate. Obviously, last year was terrible, but you can still feel better of him coming in and having Mydroth at second. You can also have Rojas come in as a defensive replacement at third base if Miguel Vargas is there or Ramos. Either way, or Ramos. I always keep mispronouncing his name. Sorry about that. But either way, you've got some flexibility there. And plus, Rojas still has a minor league option left. So it sounds like the Sox probably had to make some playing time promises, though, to get him to sign with the White Sox. So I don't know if they're going to use that option because it sounded like, again, the Cubs were really coming in hard on him. And Craig Counsell loves his utility players. So I'm sure the Sox had to give him some playing time assurances, but he does still have a minor league option left where Sosa and Vargas, I believe, are out of options. So they got to make the team. And again, you get some roster flexibility too. And I still circle back to why I'm not opposed to having a veteran this go around possibly take away some at-bats for the younger players because he's likely not getting in the way of at least Colson Montgomery. It's been a while since he's played shortstop, and he was a terrible fielder there. Played shortstop in 2021. He was a -13 defensive run saved. So he's not going to block Colson Montgomery, and I'm all right if Brooks Baldwin doesn't get a lot of playing time. Brooks Baldwin, yeah, he raked in the minors, great, but didn't show much last season that he could hit at the majors. And maybe, again, he just might be a better version of Danny Mendick. But if you do need a bridge player in case Colson does have to go to AAA, Rojas can fill in there. You do have some options, too, with Baldwin. If Baldwin has to be that bridge, if Jacob Amaya somehow makes the roster, you've got some options that wouldn't be taking away from Montgomery. But otherwise, you got to remember, Sosa is still a player who ping-ponged back and forth between AAA and the Sox. A strong finish does not mean Sharpie into the lineup, especially since he was awful in April, got demoted, came back, did all right, but he didn't hit for any power, got demoted again, came back, and yeah, he finished strong. That should give him an opportunity to make the roster, but that's it. That's all he should be, guaranteed. So the other thing, too, is I'm always going to advocate if you want to actually maximize at least Vargas giving you something of value, play him at first. Don't play him at third. I went over it on Monday. At least the defensive metrics support that Miguel Vargas is a much better fielder than Andrew Vaughn. Yes, I am arguing. I'm going crazy. I am arguing for Vargas to play at first. Rotate Vaughn at DH and Vargas at DH if you want. or Ramos, I don't care. You know, you can always rotate those three, get those guys in. And, I'm fine again with Rojas too coming to the team because good teams did want Josh Rojas. And if he produces in the field and does better at the plate, you at least have a trade asset at the deadline. So if he's still on the team after July, then yes, we have a problem. All right, speaking of assets, a lot of the team's future is in the minors, and a lot of their assets are in the minor leagues right now. The farm system is rising up the rankings. Let's discuss if you should be excited about the prospect rankings or be wary considering how last decade's rebuild turned out to be a bust, and I'll talk about that next on Locked On White Sox. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. That's why I always say this about FanDuel: the money lines, the over-unders, and the spreads, they're fun to play. But the props, the parlays, and the futures, that's where you can really have a chance to win it big and really also have a lot of fun at doing it. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. I do actually think I have to cut down on the coffee. I know some people don't like it when I talk about coffee, but I keep getting this, build up on there. Blah. Sometimes I think I got to get, cut down from 4 to like 2 or something. Anyways, Bleacher Report's Joel Reuter, I believe, Joel Reuter put out his final farm system rankings of 2024. I know it's Bleacher Report, but I think he does a pretty solid job of looking at all the prospects in that. And he has the White Sox at number 4 of all baseball. So think about that. 30 teams, the White Sox have the 4th best farm system. FanGraphs rankings also has the White Sox at number 4 based on their value rankings. I think FanGraphs does a great job if you want to look at the value when they take, each tool grades and they put a money amount on it. And then they rank it based on like how much your total farm system would have accumulated in value and money. White Sox, I believe, would be like a $230 million value. So I really like that as well. And also MLB Pipeline's Sam Dykstra listed the Sox as one of the 9 teams who have improved their farm system in 2024. One moment. Excuse me there. Obviously, shooting up in the rankings is in large part to the Garrett Crochet trade, where it helped the Sox get now 6 prospects in MLB Pipeline's top 100. Trade with Boston, involving an ace. Where have I seen that before? Oh, yeah. The failed rebuild of last decade. And yes, it failed because it just produced 2 playoff wins, 1 division title. And remember, the expectation and even the propaganda coming out of 35th and Shields was multiple World Series championships. Remember Rick Hahn's famous quote, "Ask me after the parade"? So that does have a portion of the fan base very skeptical of this current go-around of the Sox system being hyped. And it's deserved. But on the other side of the coin, you got that sense of excitement of better days ahead. Where do I come down on this? Cautiously optimistic. I'd say trending more to optimistic because you got to have hope. Otherwise, man, this is going to be a tough run than it already is as a fan. I'm sorry. You got to have a little sliver of hope. You can be skeptical. You can have cynicism. You can check out. That's all great emotions. But to be just downright, here we go again. Got to have some hope. Okay? And I got no quarrels with you if you think all these prospects still will not produce a winner, because there is the dark clouds of ownership and the henchmen of Tony La Russa. Yes, it's warranted. But, consider me Andy Dufresne when it comes to hope. Shawshank Redemption, shout out. I'm not red. I get that hope can be a dangerous thing, but there's still nothing wrong with having some hope. Nothing wrong with having a little bit of excitement. Nothing wrong with it being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And you are starting to see a very, small glimmer of light coming in. And I talked about it on Monday. You know, I'm a little bit caught, or I would say maybe I'm in the, in between cautious and optimistic and I talked about on Monday was I do think the White Sox need at least 2 more drafts to infuse the talent necessary to feel confident that this team's going to be competitive again by the end of the decade. I do believe that. They have to hit on the number 10 pick this year. They have to have Hagen Smith develop into a stud pitcher. They do need probably, again, a couple more drafts and a couple more hits in the first through the fourth round. And that's where I'm going to be looking for. Are you hitting on rounds 1 through 4? Are you stealing maybe some guys that would be a first or second rounder out of high school by getting them the sign, by overslotting them maybe in the 6th round like you did with George Wolcott, or maybe even later in the draft? That's what I'm going to be looking at. Otherwise, picks 5 through 17, those are just fillers. Those are just guys you're taking on flyers on, or stick to your strategy of just keep drafting pitchers then. But I do think they need to have some more drafts, but I'm still excited for the players that the Sox have coming up. I love the possibility of Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith anchoring the rotation for years to come. And again, I know there's the dark cloud of them eventually getting traded because ownership will not pay them, but I still look forward to seeing them play. After going through the Chris Sale and Garrett Crochet experience, I'm going to appreciate every outing they have with the White Sox, with the caveat that, I do want them to perform well. I don't want Carson Fulmer. I want Chris Sale. I want Garrett Crochet. Even Carlos Rodon without all the injuries. Give me those, that will be where I'm getting excited. Yes, if they're terrible, then yeah, I'm going to call them out on it. But it doesn't look like, so far from what I've seen out of Schultz, and I've watched a few of his Birmingham Barons starts, and what I've read about both, there's nothing to skew that they will be terrible pitchers. There's a very good chance that they're going to be aces. And I like how the Sox have some guys who have the potential to rake, or at least be very good ball players in Kyle Teal, Edgar Carroll, or Colson Montgomery. Am I worried about Colson not hitting his Corey Seager-like ceiling? Yeah. We saw Gordon Beckham also not get beyond his floor. And Montgomery will be a big league player. You hit 18 home runs at AAA, you're going to be a big league player, in my opinion. It's just, is your floor Paul DeYoung or Gordon Beckham? Or are you Corey Seager? Are you a franchise player? And we still have to wonder about that because he did have that terrible average at AAA, but he did provide signs that, yes, he could still be that Corey Seager floor or Corey Seager ceiling with his strong September in Arizona Fall League. So I'm willing to give him a run. And on the surface, you do see the Sox making nothing but moves to acquire veterans that are making $2 million or less. And again, if they're making $2 million or less, that's usually the indication of a player who's replacement level or just not very valuable in terms of talent or production. And that's going to usually add up to a 100-loss season. But I do like, again, these system rankings because it gives you hope. And I'm going to choose to think that they have hope because if you're going with the history of, well, things have never worked out, didn't work out in the last rebuild, the Sox at least have had that brief bump from when they've had highly rated systems. You cannot take that away from the Sox organization when they've had at least that brief bump. They had one of the greatest strings of drafts in the late 80s and early 90s and won a division title with that in 1993. The kids did end up playing in the late 90s. You won a division title in the 2000s. Even the last rebuild, even though it was in overall a total failure, you did win the 2021 division title. So you do get that bump. The problem is, I would say this, where I give grace to the super negative, is you just don't get sustained success from these guys, from the system, because of ownership imposing spending limits and a poor use of the limited resources to spend by management. That's what happens. So that's why I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm optimistic that, yes, this, I hope 2 more drafts, 2 or 3, produce good to great players. But I'm also realistic in that there's a chance that it might be not able to produce sustained success. And I think that's what we just really want. I think any White Sox fan would love that. Not only would they want success, but then just keep it. Keep these guys around, please. So right now I'm going to choose hope, even if there's a bunch of figurative storm clouds hanging over the team. Well, did you know the Sox have 5 former players who are on this year's Hall of Fame ballot? Let's discuss who they are and what they did with the White Sox and where they currently are on the vote total in today's Top Friday. And we'll get to that next on Locked On White Sox. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a Brewer Sox game with my daughter. Took her there. We had some ice cream. I had some hot dogs and some pizza. She loved taking in the game. Well, maybe she actually loved taking in the ice cream more, but still, it was a great memory seeing her just have a fun time at the ballpark. And I hope to take her again. And now Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events. With their new feature, Gametime Picks, this feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And I'm always on the Gametime app looking for deals for my beloved Marquette basketball. Got it on right now. I've always found tickets for, I once found tickets for as low as $1. Now, those were the buy games, but I keep finding great deals, and hopefully I can convince my wife to let me purchase some tickets, although I don't think I'm going to be able to convince her to go tonight. But I'm checking the app, hoping I can find a great deal and be like, hey, it's Friday night. Let's go check out the Marquette game. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today, because what time is it? Game time. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as the show is available on all major podcast platforms. And hey, leave a 5-star review if you get a chance. I've got some haters out there. I do think I'm doing a good job. I hope you think I'm doing a good job. But let's outshine the haters. There's like one or two, the trolls that love to come out from their bridge, leave bad reviews because they hate their life. So they have to bring other people down. Let's build this up. And like I said, the YouTube community, we're building it up. Appreciate the comments. To the person that asked about Jose Quintana, as I answered her, and I'll just answer anybody. Yes, I would love to see the White Sox sign Jose Quintana, but since they've been signing everybody for under $2 million, I don't think they're going to sign Jose Quintana because he's going to make way too much money. So while I would love a reunion and I feel more comfortable, I think they're swimming in the $2 million range. James Fox of Future Sox, he's well tapped into the White Sox community. He's been on the show. He's got some sources in there. He is. He tweeted out, though, that they're looking at Jacob Junis. I've said on many shows that I would actually think that that's a pretty good signing for the White Sox with his ability. He had 5 strong starts. He has started in the past. He can also be a very reliable bullpen arm. I wouldn't mind seeing him and, Bryce Wilson battle it out. So we'll see on that. Anyways, Andrew Jones, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And my hope is the fielding god, because he was a great defensive outfielder. I mean, that guy just took away runs. And also for a time, he was amazing at the plate. Hopefully he finally gets in. And also Mark Burley, he should be in. Although it'll likely be on the Veterans Committee vote. But at least he's still drawing enough votes to stay on the ballot to maybe have a shot on, say, maybe his 10th and final time on the writer's ballot. But I don't think he's going to get there. I think it's going to have to come on a veteran committee. But on today's Top 5 Friday, I listed out I'm going to go over the 5 players that actually did play for the Sox, whether it was, their career, for most of their career, like Burley, or just for a brief time, like Andrew Jones. I want to go over, where they are on the Hall of Fame balloting vote. What do they do for the Sox? And plus, just kind of go over why their case to be a Hall of Famer maybe. So I'll go 5 through 1 on the vote totals received so far, according to Baseball Hall of Fame voter tracker. The Baseball Hall of Fame vote tracker. There's a guy who actually goes through Twitter when these guys release their votes, whoever the baseball writers are, and he's tracking it for us. So appreciate that. So number 5, Omar Vizquel. And he's also at the bottom of this list because of the controversy he just caused when he was a manager in the Sox farm system. And he was sued for sexual harassment by an autistic bat boy. He settled it. And well, the accusations are just gross. So I don't want to spend too much time on Omar Vizquel. Just know that he has 13% of the vote, according to BBHOFtracker.com. And yeah, he played 2 seasons on the South Side. That's all I'm going to give Omar Vizquel. All right. Mark Burley, he's also at 13% of the vote right now. 12 glorious seasons on the South Side. Should have been 16 and played his entire career there, but in everyday areas have heard me say it. It was a shame he wasn't allowed to finish his career in Chicago. 5-time All-Star with the White Sox, 4 Gold Gloves, 14 seasons where he pitched over 200 innings. He's the last of his kind. I mean, we're probably never going to see a pitcher go 14 seasons where he throws over 200 innings with with innings limits, all that stuff. And again, think about it. He was consistently good enough, 3.81 career ERA, to be counted on to give you 200 innings of quality baseball. Think about that. Sometimes just being very, very good to answer the bell continuously and produce should get you into the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. Even if it is the Hall of Very Good, you got to be, one of the reasons why Cal Ripken, you can say, how dare you compare him to Cal Ripken? I'm just saying, one of the reasons why we revere his consecutive game streak is you still have to be good enough for the manager to put your name in the lineup card. And, Mark Burley was good enough to continually come out and produce 200 inning seasons. He was also a career 60 B WAR. So think about that. Jimmy Rollins, he's number 3. He's at 21.7% of the vote. Yes, he did play for the White Sox. His final season was actually with the White Sox in 2016 when he was 37. By the time he came to the Sox, though, he was pretty much cooked. A 221 average and a 624 OPS, played in just 41 games. Was very valuable, though, in terms of, basically speaking out on the Sox culture, being like, what the bleep is this type of organization? What the heck did I get myself into? But with the Phillies, he was the man. Former MVP, 3-time All-Star, 4 Gold Gloves. Number 2, Manny Ramirez. And he played very, very briefly for the White Sox, just 24 games in 2010. I believe he came over when they used to have the waiver trade deadline. They used to have the non-waiver trade deadline by July 31st, and then they had the waiver trade deadline by August 31st. So long as you cleared waivers, you could still be traded. So he came over to the White Sox from the Dodgers. He hit 261 with a 739 OPS plus. He hit just one of his 511 career home runs with the Sox. He is at 42.4% of the vote. I'm not sure he'll ever get in based on the 2 suspensions for using performance-enhancing drugs. I mean, Barry Bonds and, for example, Sammy Sosa, they can make different cases in that making mistakes, as Sosa calls it. And Bonds is still just outright denying it, even though, we all have eyes to see how his body got very, very big after 1998, and also 2 books detail in very good detail, Game of Shadows and Love Me, Hate Me, about his use. But it was still technically not against the rules. Remember, during the steroid era, it was not banned by baseball. They weren't testing for it. I mean, yes, it was banned legally. They couldn't take steroids without a prescription, but it was not a banned substance. Plus, Barry, before 1999, was a 400 guy and won a ton of MVPs. And Sammy still had to make contact with the ball. He was just able to drive it longer. And obviously the same could go for Manny, but once roids got banned, he still used it. I mean, there's a legit history that he not only used it once, but twice. He got suspended twice. Finally, Jones, 1 season with the White Sox in 2010, played 107 games, hit 230, but had an 827 OPS that season. He has 73.9% of the vote. So let's hopefully see him get enough to get that 75% threshold. As, overall, he won 10 Gold Gloves, 5-time All-Star, 62.7 career B WAR, led the on home runs in 2005, 51 dingers. He just did everything great. Well, his bat was a little inconsistent if you look at his career numbers, but fielding, that guy literally took away runs. So put the man in the Hall of Fame. All right, well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back on Monday to finish up my minor league Monday recaps of the White Sox top 30 prospects. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding if the Sox made a mistake by signing Josh Rojas, since he could take away precious at-bats from younger players, whether you should be optimistic about the Sox farm system after the last rebuild failed, and today's Top 5 Friday, going over 5 former Sox players on the Hall of Fame ballot and tracking their percentages right now. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub or at Locked On White Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day, have a great weekend, and I will see you Monday.